All right, everyone. Episode number 62. We're going to be speaking about something common in Jungian spiritual psychology, and it's called the dark night of the soul. We're going to explain what it is and what we can find on the other side. Let's get started. This is the Debbie and Dr. Rob Show. You are in the right place if you are tired of the basic self-help and you're ready for a higher level of teaching in neuroscience, Jungian psychology, and Eastern wisdom. We offer world-class personal development and coach training for evolving women entrepreneurs to help you go to the next level of growth in success, relationships, and living your purpose. So let's get started. All right, the dark night, Dr. Rob.
That's right.
Everyone's favorite topic.
Never let it be said that we shy away from deep subjects.
Yes, it's a term that a lot of people talk about. It's in the pop culture. They're going through a dark night of the soul.
Yes. It actually goes back, well, the specific term goes back to this guy named St. John of the Cross. For the Catholics out there, you probably know about him. He wrote a book called The Dark Night of the Soul, and it kind of, for Jung, it resonated. He recognized it as the individuation process, which we're going to talk about. And
so what is the dark night of the soul for people? There's a lot of misconceptions around it, and we're going to set the record straight.
Yeah. Well, this is a quote by Dante, or out of Dante's work. It says, "In the middle of the journey of our life, I found myself astray in a dark wood where the straight road had been lost sight of."
Wow.
And that's typical, right? It's in the middle of life, you find yourself kind of questioning, what is the meaning of my life? It is essentially a crisis of meaning, where all the things you thought were making you happy and giving meaning to your life seem to fall apart, and now you have to confront this, and we can say that this dark night of the soul, a lot of people misinterpret as depression or as midlife crisis.
Or something terrible happened to me, or I'm being bad, I'm being evil, or something.
Being punished.
They're having a dark night of the soul. They're doing something out of their character.
So it goes by many names. We could say it is what people call that midpoint of life where you question everything.
It's kind of like an existential crisis in a way.
Yes.
And so to understand what the dark night is, the sense of it is that everything that we thought out there to make us happy, that we've been striving for, is not satisfying, or it's lost in some way. And we're forced to look inward. And so it's not this terrible, horrible thing that happened to us, but it could be if we don't go through it consciously. Right. But so it's kind of like this kind of questioning stage where we're not clear. That's where it's dark. It's like we're kind of in that cloudy thinking of, where do I go next? Who am I?
Yeah. And because most people are focused outward, most would say that it was precipitated or took the form of a divorce, loss of job, shift in career,
an illness,
some kind of crises. Something happened that prompted this feeling of, what is my life really about?
It happened for me when I was 36. I was all my 20s and early 30s was all about, I got to find a man, I got to find a man, I got to find a man. And I was so focused on that external reward of finding that one person. And I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that idea, that desire, that when I find that love of my life, everything's going to fall into place. So I found this person and I convinced myself that they were the one, and they gave me the ring, and they wanted to marry me. And it was almost like I was in this kind of a sleep at the wheel, and going through the process of planning a wedding. And I was still kind of disconnected in a way. I knew something was off. And even in my career, I wasn't satisfied. I knew I wanted to do something different. I actually went to massage school thinking I could, become a massage therapist. And then that didn't work. I really didn't resonate with it. So it was like this moment in my life where I was 36 and we decided not to get married. And then a week later, my job laid me off and we had to move out of the house. And it was like kind of this big upheaval where everything in my life that I felt was secure, where my security was placed, was pulled away from me. And there was nowhere else to look but inward. And so I was conscious going through it. I knew that these things were happening not because I had terrible luck, but I knew that it was telling me something. And I think that's what really had me go through the process. My cousin, who I was living with at the time, he let me live in his house through this whole thing, not having a home. And he said, I was really surprised at how calm you were through that process because I knew there was something good coming out of it. But most people don't see that. Most people see it as my whole world is ending. And so if you approach it with that disaster, this is the end of my life kind of fatalistic attitude, it could end up feeling really dark. And so it didn't feel like the dark night, but it was the dark night of me questioning, who am I? What's the meaning of my life? What's my higher purpose? What should I be doing with my life?
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of people reach this crisis point, not when it's their low point, but it's when they're at the height of their career or their life, because they've attained everything they thought was going to make them happy, and it's not there. It didn't pay off. Mm-hmm. It wasn't what they thought they were going to get from this achievement or this marriage or this lifestyle.
So sometimes it doesn't come in a form of it's taken away, but it's given to you and it's still feeling empty. Jim Carrey often talks about the idea, I hope everyone has incredible wealth and is famous and can have anything they want, and they realize that's not what's going to make them happy. We see this with celebrities. We see this with politicians, with people that, kind of have that external success. We see this with people who get married and they think I've worked with so many people that have had the appropriate husband, the one that everyone in the family approves of, the Barbie and Ken looking perfect relationship. And they come to me and inside they're going, oh my God, I can't stand my husband. I don't even know if I love him. And I'm in this marriage with these kids. And I thought this is what I wanted to do. Or they're in a corporate job. I see so many women too that are so, really working hard, even having their own businesses and feeling like they're entrepreneurs but they're exhausted and they feel like they're on this treadmill and they're like, what is this all about? They have money, they have success, but they're questioning, what else is there? Like it's still not satisfying. It's never enough. And that's really that crisis. Of more money is not going to solve the problem, or another relationship isn't going to solve the problems. It's something else that I need, like a spiritual crisis.
Yes, very much so. And we do see it in celebrities or public figures a lot because they're out there in the public and we get to know all that's going on with them. But it's really going on with everyone in a sense. But those public figures, because they build up such a big persona that's projected out into the public, their shadow is kind of heavier, or their crises is a little bit heavier, and it often they crash and burn in spectacular ways.
There's actually a lot of rehab facilities in Malibu. You hear that famous, all these celebrities are going because they're over drinking and overeating. We're having eating disorders because they're just so they can't, their psyche can't handle all that, they can't handle all that attention. They're still not happy. They haven't done the personal work inside. And so it's this like kind of superficial bubble that they're in that's about to pop.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people ask us, well, when does this happen? Is there a certain time?
And how do we know that it's happening, right? So it usually happens around midlife, if we're lucky. You had told me many times when we first met that when you worked in the hospital, you would talk to these people that on their deathbed, and they were having that crisis that time. Why didn't I step out more? What was the meaning of my life? And those questions, you don't want to wait till the end of your life to have that dark night. At least they had it before they passed on, but we want to welcome it in a way, because it does really help us live the rest of our life, the second half of our life, in a deeper, more meaningful way.
I guess we could boil it down to a few fundamental questions that we have to answer when we enter the dark night of the soul. And that is, who am I? What is my purpose in life? And what is the meaning of my life? And in mythologies, it was always this journey that the person was on, representing our soul, and they get to a point where they have to answer a riddle, in a sense. They have to answer this tough question before they can pass onto the next stage of their journey. And that's symbolic of our journey, that we have to answer these difficult questions. And if we ignore them and say, maybe I can get away without doing this, right? If I focus on my work, if I get the $1 million, if I get the right car and the right marriage, and I pretend to be happy,
I have the perfect children.
Yeah, I can get away without really answering these questions. That's when disaster befalls people, because no one gets away. Everyone has to go through this in one form or another. And midlife, and it's hard to define midlife because everybody lives to different ages. But it's kind of implied in like we were saying, in either the crises that befall us, or the high points that don't give us the payoff that we were expecting.
So if you were going to, some of you may be thinking, well, how do I know this is the dark night of the soul? Or I've had people ask me, well, what does that mean? What does it look like? I think the most basic way to describe it is that everything out there is no longer satisfying to you in a way, and that there's kind of a dissatisfaction. And it can either come from like I said, things being taken away from you, and then you're forced to make that decision, or you really aren't ready to keep building what you already built. So it's that moment where you're just like, why am I doing this? Like, if I have more money or grow my business bigger, or if I get that next promotion in this career, it's still not like going to fulfill me. Or if I stay married to this person and maybe go to marriage counseling, I just feel like it's not there. It's not outside. And so when the external world stops feeding you, your mind, and you start asking, well, what else is there? That's that dark night. Because we're all brought up in the beginning of our life to go and achieve things, to find a job, find a great partner, have children, build a life. And that's really important. And the second half of life is we have to build something else. And I think that if you keep just building on that superficial external, eventually it's going to crash. And so what we want to do is we want to go through it consciously. Can you describe any other way of, if someone, because people ask, like, I don't know if I went through it or if I'm going through it right now, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I would say we have different opportunities in our life to go through it. And often we don't take advantage of those opportunities because we confuse them for mistakes in our life. We confuse them for bad luck, for bad marriages, for bad career decisions, when in reality it's a wake-up call from the unconscious mind, the deeper process in us, that it's trying to get our attention to say, it's time to do this. But because we're so focused externally, we think, oh, it was just a bad turn of events for me. It was just bad luck, or I ran into the wrong people. I married the wrong person. I got into the wrong career or something. So Jung would say that it's this great opportunity to really transform yourself and find your true self, because it's forcing you, in a sense, to look inward, and it is that shifting from being externally driven by those successes or external appearances to look inward into who am I and what is the meaning of my life.
I always call it like a pivot. You see the lighthouse, it's shining out, and then it turns toward the land, and then it shines out toward the ocean, and then it turns toward the land. It's like our consciousness is either shining outward and looking for that outward for security, or it's turning inward and finding the internal experience. And when you start pivoting inward, then you could start creating consciously outward. Then you can create and design your life in a very powerful way. But if you're still externally motivated, you will create more of that dependency on external things. Like if I have money in my bank, if this person doesn't leave me, or if I have a partner, then I'll be happy. It's a very powerless place to be.
Yeah. So we're almost lucky when it happens to us early on, and we take advantage of it. Just like you found yourself homeless and manless and jobless. In other words, you were forced to look inward and say, what am I doing? Instead of kind of going along with the flow and trying to force it to work for you. It forces you then to ask those questions and to really find the answer for yourself. Jung said, well, he called this process by different names, but we can, one of my favorite ones is he called it the night sea journey. So the night sea journey is kind of based on the mythologies that you as the center of your life, you as the hero of your own story, have to undertake this perilous journey into the unconscious, into the deeper parts of your mind.
And dark doesn't mean negative. It just means unknown or unseen, hidden.
That's right, the hidden unconscious aspects of your psyche. And by this, he didn't mean just let's say, the personal programming that most people think of the unconscious as. He meant the deeper unconscious, where we kind of deal with religious symbology, with mythological symbols that we often see in dreams, for example.
Just kind of like a bigger picture than just us. And I think a lot of people that do personal development work do have a sense they're a spiritual being in some way. But what does that mean?
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, if you haven't gone through the dark night in a conscious way, the spiritual being is almost like a foreigner to you. It's a concept and a logical concept, but it's not embodied where you really feel it. Yeah. And the opposite would be someone who's like very new agey, and then their ego has basically taken over that spiritual ideal and made it more of a fantasy, like this magical fantasy, and it's still not grounded and embodied. The ego has basically used it for your own fantasy, and still in those, and I did this too. Thought I was so spiritual before this, and what I was doing is I was still projecting my spiritual power outward. Like these angels are going to help me, and these guides are going to help me, and this other realm, that's spiritual realm that's outside of me. And now I understood through this process of individuation, Jungian work, is that these aspects are within us. They're not external. They're not out there. Let's wait for them to come in and download to us. They're already in us. They're already part of us. They are us. And that's really the beauty of the work, is to go inward and really get a sense of what does it mean to be a spiritual being and have a direct experience of it, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So individuation, meaning the process of becoming your true self. Jung saw this as, or the night sea journey as the the central piece of it. This going inward into the unconscious, right? Focusing inward instead of expecting things out there to satisfy you. You're searching for satisfaction in yourself. Your rock, your stability is within you, instead of depending on these external situations which are going to go up and down. We know that's the nature of life. It's impermanent, it's ever changing. And if you depend on those things, you're in for trouble, right? It's like being caught up in a storm in the ocean, because it's going to pull you and push you. In
every wave hits you and you feel perilous in a perilous situation. It's kind of like you feel as though you're a top spinning, those little tops the kids would play with. And it just spins and spins and spins, and it's not solid. It's just, as long as it's spinning, it stays. But then eventually it runs out of gas. And that's, I think, what happens to us in this thing, that the top, we're just so exhausted from keeping it spinning that it can't just stay upright by itself. And so that's the persona. It's that kind of surface spinning and grasping for the external and constantly like on a treadmill. And then when the top pops to the side, that's when the Night Sea journey happens. It's like, okay, now we'll go and get a deeper foundation to live our life. So how can someone consciously go through it, or if they're in it, how can we get ahead of it? How can we go through this process without coming out too bruised or discouraged? And it's not like, a lot of people think it's depression, but it's not a depression. It's just kind of like, it feels more for most people as a dissatisfaction of nothing makes me happy anymore. Nothing, nothing is, it's like there has to be something more to life question.
Yeah, that's true. The danger is that people will misread it as kind of accepting this emptiness or this feeling of emptiness as meaninglessness, as that's all there is. I can't expect anything better, and I'll just have to get used to this sense of meaninglessness and just depending on the appearance of things to live my life. And that's what a lot of people do. They say, well, that's as good as it gets, right? That's as good as it gets, and I might as well get used to it. In reality, like we said, this is a calling into the greatest adventure of your life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it is, because it's challenging you to create yourself from the inside out. To recreate yourself from the inside out, because the first stage of life, we live as persona, meaning as our ego. Basically, we think, if I build up this persona, this personality that has this identity and this job and this career and this marriage, that's what is going to fulfill me. That's the meaning of life, in essence. And in a way, it is. It's important to do those things. Jung definitely believed in achieving that part of your life and being wholly invested in it. But he says there's another part of us, and it comes around and around that midpoint of life that we have to fulfill as well. And it's almost a reverse process. It's transcending our personality.
It's almost like peeling away the layers, letting go of, it's like letting go of the parts of us that we think define us and keep us secure, and being willing to be something else. And most of the time it's something, and well, all of the time, it's something much greater than our little personality thinks we are. And the problem with people going through this process is many people try to do it alone. There is a lot of resistance from the ego. It's built up this personality, and it's for security. Like I can't, go into a room and have people not like me, or I can't express how I really feel, or if I don't find that marriage, that partner, and if I'm alone, I'm going to look ridiculous. If I leave my corporate job that has kept me so successful in my big, beautiful house to start off and maybe risk everything to start my own business, and what will people think? There's a lot of resistance to what we built up because our ego thinks this is who we are. And actually, in a way, it's like you're not killing the ego, but the ego feels threatened by it. It feels like it's going to be destroyed in a way. And in essence, it's seeing yourself beyond as something bigger.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The problem that the reason why it's hard to do it alone is because the ego is so clever, and it will convince you to, it's okay. Everyone is unsatisfied with life. So have a drink. Everyone is, doing what I'm doing and making money, and I should be happy. We try to convince ourselves that everything's okay. And then we end up just digging deeper and deeper into that delusion. When you have a guide, that's when you can really make progress, because a guide will help you, who's been through the process themselves, will call you on those pieces of your excuses and your resistance, and will challenge you to face those things. And if you think about the hero, every hero myth, there's always been the wise old man or the wise woman guiding the hero or heroine through the night sea journey, and basically holding a light to show that here's the path, give you tools to discover who you are.
Yeah. The mythology definitely reflects that guide or teacher guiding you through the process. What we saw in our work was that the coaching model was perfect for this, because if the coach understands the individuation process, this night sea journey, this dark night of the soul, and they recognize it as the greatest opportunity in the individual's life to transform their life.
The greatest journey. I love that.
Yeah, then it becomes a process of transformation. And the model of having a guide, it goes back to ancient time. In Eastern philosophy, you see the Zen master or the wise teacher teaching the pupil how to go through it. And that's the same idea. You just need a guide.
And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, or that's why I like the coaching model. You're not healing anything. You're not broken in any way. You're actually, it's a journey you were meant to be on, and you just need someone who's been through it, so you don't have to be lost in it for you. And some people stay lost in the night sea journey for years. They don't even know they're in it, but they're going years and years. And if you're listening and thinking, oh yeah, I think I've been in this funk for about 5 or 10 years, it's because you probably don't have a guide. And here's the thing, all guides aren't the same. If the guide hasn't individuated, it'd be like the blind leading the blind. And when we say individuated, a guide is going to help you go inside and look inward versus set a goal and try to achieve something externally to get that satisfaction. And I think a lot of what's happening in the coaching industry, it's all about manifesting money and manifesting a man and manifesting losing weight without the understanding of who am I, and asking that critical question of who am I. And if you can create a lot with the ego, and if you keep building it up, it's going to crash. So you have to really ask that question: who am I? What's the meaning of my life, and what's my purpose? And I guarantee your purpose isn't to be a millionaire and to find a man and to all those things. It's something deeper. It can include those things, but it's not the finish line. That's not really what the goal is. And so for someone to remind you to be not so attached to those things or define you by whether you're alone or single, by whether you're a millionaire or a beginner and you're struggling to make your business, but you love what you do, that's really the power of a appropriate guide to take you through this journey. And so what's on the other side? It sounds so like dark, but it really is. Let me tell you personally, and then I'll let you answer, Rob. But for me, going through that process of having everything stripped away forced me to go, Debbie, you are on the track to ego. It wasn't working. I wasn't happy. I was not meeting. And it was like I had a bigger mission. And I've always in my mind said, I want to do something different. I want to write. I wrote books like on my own on the weekends, and had this passion for writing and had this passion for helping people. And I would go to these workshops and be like, I'd love to teach these workshops. I don't know how that would happen. And I used to listen to like Marianne Williamson and be like, wow, it'd be so great to have a career like her. But I never thought it was possible. So I kind of settled for, well, if I just meet the right guy, that'll help me be happy. And having that relationship fall apart, having my corporate job, lay me off, it just made everything wake up for me. And it did take me a year and a half to finally get on track to what I really wanted to do. I went to hypnotherapy school first, and that's really what started me breaking away completely from the madness of just following and being passionate about getting those external things. And through that year, first doing the hypnotherapy, I realized there's even another layer that I need to go to and understand about myself. And I think there was a moment right before I met you, Rob, where I said, the man isn't, if he comes or not, that's not going to save me. I have to be willing to just have a bigger picture for my life. And when I let go, that idea going finally that some man is going to come and make it all right, that's when you showed up. And I think that's where, when we stop it being so attached to that external, it actually shows up for us in ways bigger than we thought they could. So for me, I found the love of my life, the dream business, feeling passionate about what I do. I live in the most beautiful place in the world that I feel is paradise. And I'm happy. I'm naturally happy and feel satisfied in it. I don't have that anxiety anymore of life. I know what my meaning is in life, and it just keeps getting better. And so that's really the gift of what happens after you go through the process. What about for you?
Yeah, certainly we all go through, let's say, from the dark night of the soul, where we experience that meaninglessness or depression, to understanding the night sea journey, right? That it's about looking inward and doing our internal work, that internal transformation, right? The metamorphosis that we're meant to be going through in this life. And then on to individuation, meaning finding our true purpose, expressing the full potential of our being in this life, not in the next life. We're not after some paradise off in heaven. We're saying we have to realize it here in this lifetime, in
heaven on earth.
Yeah, and the way we live, not in running off to a cave in India or the Himalayas, but saying, how can we express that in the way we live our lives? And that takes, individuation simply means finding your individual purpose. So it takes many different forms. There's not one set way of doing it or the way it's going to look. Each person is going to find their unique way of expressing it, and something that is unique to them that only they can bring into this world. But in doing that, they serve the higher purpose of serving humanity, of helping the planet, of making it a better place, not only for themselves, but for others. And it is living a full life, what we all aspire to, being happy in what we do in our work, in our relationships, and in our everyday life.
And your ego, the ego makes you feel so certain that what it wants is going to save you. That for me, it was, if I just found the husband and had babies and had the picket fence, I wanted the cul-de-sac. I wanted to have the barbecues in the backyard. I wanted to have this family kind of comfort. If I would have gotten that, I wouldn't have gotten my mission. And maybe it would have taken me longer because I would have put all my energy in still building that thing that it really wasn't my path. But the ego will make you feel so certain in what you want, and you'll be so fixed on it that if I don't have this, it's going to be a terrible thing. And then what happens is that when we don't get what we want, it's actually exactly what we need. And so remember, whatever you're not having in your life that you're so certain that if I just get this one thing, it's going to make me happy. You have to trust that the reason you're not getting that thing or that person or that goal or whatever you're looking at is because there's something even bigger, a gold, deeper that's in store for you. And so the divine never withholds anything. We always feel like, oh, well, it's not in his plan that I don't find love yet, or it's not in God's plan that I don't have money, or it's not in God's plan that I don't lose this extra 30 pounds. No, the divine has a bigger mission for you, and it never holds back. And we have to look at our life when things don't work out. It's not the divine withholding. It's the ego settling for less. And the divine is saying, there's so much more. And I wish I can go back to little Debbie at 30, in my 30s, crying over stupid guys that I dated and wishing that it worked out with the charismatic, womanizer guy, and say, it's going to be okay. You're going to have more than you ever wished. And that's our message for you as we come to the end of the year, that just because you don't have what you want right now doesn't mean you're not going to get even more than you wish for. And sometimes we have to know who we are first to know what we're capable of and to see that possibility and live it.
Fascinating topic.
Yeah.
We could go on and on, but we will do other podcasts on the topic.
Yeah, let us know what you think. It's really, the dark night doesn't have to be dark and heavy, but it really is that time where we have to turn inward. And inward in the darkness is the unconscious. So don't think of it as this, like the Batman, the Dark Knight, the Joker and all that. It's really facing who we are inside and understanding that we're much more than we actually thought we were. And that's really the beauty of this process. So, and if you're interested in exploring this live, we are going to be doing a live event called Alchemy in January in LA. So if you're interested, let us know. Come to our website and find out more about it and get your ticket to attend. It's going to be a transformational event for women. Really, we're going to use the archetypes, the power archetypes for women that help you step into that new role. We're going to help you with this individuation, moving through what you're holding on to, letting go of that so you can really step into your true spiritual power and be a force of nature in the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hope to see you there.
So have a great week and holiday season, and we will see you on our next podcast.
See you next time.
Take care. You've been listening to the Debbie and Dr. Rob Show. To find out more about us, you can visit us on our website at debbieandrob.com. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play. We'd love to see you on every show, and thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you remember to believe in your biggest dreams.